Kate here, and I'm the Reluctant Christian Feminist. If you stick with me in this video, we're going to talk about hacking your brain so that you can develop the habit of reading the Bible. Now, here's a full disclaimer here. I am not a habit expert. However, I am a learning expert, and I have used learning strategies and habit strategies to help make changes stick in different cultures. So I do have a little bit of experience, but without all of the professorial type things. So I have some practical tips that are going to help you develop the habit of keeping the Bible. Let's get started. We're going to keep today's content short and sweet so you can get started in reading your Bible and developing that habit. Now, when we talk about habit, it's like moving from conscious effort to subconscious effort. I have a habit, maybe you do too, and I will find myself with the refrigerator door open with absolutely no recollection about what sent me there, but I have this habit of when I'm feeling dis-ease or I need comfort, I go straight to the refrigerator. I'm not even hungry. And that is a habit that the subconscious kind of just pushes me towards. So I have to be aware of those habits. But habits are great because you can hack your habits and you can do something without conscious effort. That's exactly what you want to do, like brushing your teeth or reading the Bible. Conscious effort, that is like remembering that you need to do something, is supported by strategies like willpower and reminders. It's like putting things into your planner or setting alarms or putting timers on your phone. For example, I have to remember to go and visit my dad every day at 8 o'clock to go take his blood pressure and give him his nightly insulin. I have to remember to do this by putting it on my alarms because I get busy and it's not a habit at 8 o'clock to all the time go over to my dad's house. I'm not even consciously aware that it is 8 o'clock. So that reminder is very helpful. It's not a habit yet. However, it is successful with a timer. Or another example is I will sometimes put something that I need to take with me the next day in the driver's seat so I don't forget. Like, taking that package that I have to remember to drop off at the post office, putting in my seat so I don't leave it on my kitchen counter for 3 weeks. Those are not habits, but they are conscious ways that we can use willpower and reminders to help us remember the little things. And truth is I'm not dropping off packages every day, so that would not actually be a good habit. But before we talk about like establishing habits, let's talk about what people try all the time that doesn't work. First of all, there's inconsistency. Another is negative reinforcement. And another is trying to establish a habit that is a change that is greater than you have the motivation to do. First of all is inconsistent action, like the idea of leaving that package on my driver's seat. I don't have a habit of dropping that off every day because it's inconsistent. Now, consistent doesn't necessarily need to mean hourly. It could mean hourly, it could mean daily, it could mean weekly or monthly or even annually. So you can actually take a habit, and we'll talk about this later on when we talk about the tips, and you could anchor it to things that you do every year. That is a way that you can do an annual habit. For someone who has a habit of worrying, they might want to establish a new habit of gratitude. So it could look like every time that I feel worry rising up, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to listen to that worry, and I'm going to take that worry and I'm going to turn it into a prayer of praise and gratitude. So in that way, you are trying to do this constantly, this consistent thing of every time that you have this habit of worrying, you're switching it around and you're turning into a habit of gratitude. So that is some ways that you can be more consistent. So inconsistency does not work for establishing a habit, but there are lots of definitions for consistency. Another approach that I have tried for years that doesn't work is to beat yourself up whenever you fail. So maybe you're trying to establish a habit of reading the Bible, and then you wake up on Tuesday, you get busy, somebody calls you, and you don't sit down and read the Bible. And you wake up on Wednesday and you beat yourself up. That doesn't work. Negative reinforcement doesn't work. It actually is contrary. Just don't beat yourself up. If you miss a day or two, that's fine. Just pick it up where you were. God isn't going to beat you up. God sees your heart. He knows where you're at, and he wants you to establish the habit. I'm pretty sure he doesn't want you to beat yourself up because you missed a day. The other approach that doesn't work is to begin a new habit that's far more aggressive than your belief or your motivation can sustain. Now, people are able to make incredible changes to their life that are huge, huge changes from how they used to live before. Gigantic 180s, but it's never without a huge motivation. For example, you might have somebody or a friend, you might know somebody who has a diagnosis, and so they have to stop smoking, or they have to completely stop eating the way they were eating before. And so they may do a gigantic switch for their life because they know that there's this diagnosis that they have to control. So the stakes are high. Their motivation is high, so they can do a gigantic change. But if your motivation is not very high, or if your belief isn't that you're going to be able to do it, like, I'm going to try this, but I don't think it's going to work, probably need to notch down that habit that you're trying to establish to something a little bit easier to do. So that takes us right into our tips. And I've got the 5 tips for establishing new habits. And the first tip is make it easy. There is no reason why you have to make a habit being something incredibly large. In fact, one of the ways that you can hack your brain, and I learned this from a lot of writers, is to make your habit to begin whatever you're going to do, not necessarily about how long you're going to do it. So for a writer who's trying to write a book, they might say, my habit is that every day I'm going to sit down and I'm going to type at least one sentence. It's a very easy goal. But most of the people know that once you sit down and write that first sentence, the second sentence is easier. And then you find yourself writing 4,000 words before you realize it. Make that habit that you're trying to establish super easy. So for instance, for a Bible reading hack, you might say, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read one verse, just one verse. Now, you know that if you get into your favorite chair and you're sitting down with your tea and you open up the Bible and you read that one verse, it's very, very easy to read that second verse. So you might find yourself reading more than one verse, but your goal, you might want to make a nice, easy goal, is to establish it to do one easy verse to do. The other is to make it enjoyable. Make that new habit something you really want to do. So if you're trying to establish a daily Bible reading habit, it might be, where can I do this habit that makes it like fun and easy? For instance, you might want to say, I love the sunrise, so my habit is going to be, I want to read one verse in the morning at sunrise. And so you establish this habit of waking up, enjoying the sunrise, enjoying reading that one verse, enjoying just praying and meditating and taking that time with God. It can be really special and it can be fun and enjoyable. The third tip is to make it clear exactly what is success, what is not success, making it clear that you're trying to read one verse at sunrise. Or it could be that you want to read one book from a devotional. It could be whatever it is that you want to be. It could be texting yourself one verse a day because you want to remind yourself of that verse later on. For instance, you can copy and paste a verse into your text messenger, and many text messengers will let you delay it so you can enjoy it in the moment, and then you can remind yourself 12 hours later. So let's move on to tip number 4, which is to anchor your new habit. So very often what can help make something successful is to create a new habit around an established habit. So for instance, if it is your habit to wake up every morning and make yourself a cup of coffee, you could perhaps put your Bible and your notebook, whatever you're going to do your daily devotions with, right next to that coffee maker. And then you have that new habit that you're establishing with an existing habit. You wake up, you make your coffee, you grab your Bible. It reminds you to do that particular thing. Some other existing habits that people often anchor to are like brushing your teeth or maybe getting dressed. So people who might want to do a new workout, they might already lay out their workout clothes first thing in the morning, so they already are ready to go. It reminds them that the first thing they want to do is go walking for 20 minutes. So they might put their walking shoes right where they can stumble over them so that they don't forget that walking is an important new habit. In the same way, place your Bible reading materials right where you're going to remember first thing in the morning. And that takes us to tip number 5, which is celebrate success. When you can look at that calendar and see the 20 days that you were successful, that is so much more motivating than looking at the 10 days that you weren't successful. Don't look at those days. Look instead and celebrate all of those days that you read the Bible that you might not have read the Bible before. And so maybe this month is 20 days, maybe next month is 25 days, and then the month after that is 30 or 31 days. It doesn't matter that you missed a few days. When you are establishing a new habit and you're seeing that success, celebrate that success. And that leads me to this one myth where people talk about how long it takes to establish a habit. Now, there is a myth out there that says it's 21 days to establish a habit. I have been guilty of using that myth before myself, and it's actually not true. It isn't that it wasn't true as much as it was based on one person's perception of about how long it took for people who got a facelift to feel comfortable in their new face. So this man took this one particular observation that he was making, and he was saying it takes 21 days to get used to a new thing. 21 days to establish a habit is what it got turned into. And then I've also heard it takes 63 days to establish a habit. But the truth is that studies have actually been performed, and establishing a new habit really depends on the person. So it can be anywhere from like 14 days to as many as 250 or more days to establish a habit. Some people find establishing habits easier than others. And doesn't that just make sense? Some people are just more prone to this sort of thing, and other people are more resistant. And maybe it's because their brains are very flexible. I'm not a brain expert, but I do notice that in my learners, when I create training, people have different ways of assessing information and accepting information. People have different ways of processing information. And so it makes sense that people establish habits in different time frames. So I want you to know that God didn't mess up when he created your brain, that whether your brain establishes habits easier or harder, that actually can work for you. Remember that there are bad habits as well as good habits. So be conscious of your habits, work towards the habits that you feel are worthy of shoving into your subconscious so that you can just do it automatically. Speaking of habits, I hope you make a habit of watching this channel. So be sure to subscribe and like and help me out. And I will be sure to give you plenty of great information about reading the Bible, about deepening your spiritual faith. Take care.